Good evening, and welcome to our City Council meeting for August the 13th, 2019. I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ortega.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Thomas. Here. Councilmember Lauer. Councilmember Thompson. Here. Councilmember Koch. Councilmember Applegate. Here. Councilmember Geek. Here. 5 members present, and Councilmember Koch and Councilmember Lauer notified staff of their absence.
Okay. All right. It's been a couple of weeks since we've met. I just want to welcome everybody again. We have a very packed agenda. I've got quite a few cards for public comment tonight. Some presentations. So we got the gamut tonight. So we'll try to be efficient and move through the process quickly. We had Ms. Thompson move over because she was all by her lonesome down there. We have 2 council members out for health reasons. So we will go ahead and move forward. So with that, we'll go straight into presentations. And Curtis, we're good to go, right? Yes, we are. Okay, this first item is a presentation and Q&A from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment regarding the FAS situation. And I think Jill Ryan is here to start us. Go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega, and hello, council members. I'm Jill Ryan. I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I know that the department has been working with you on the PFAS contamination issue from the beginning, and I brought some of our environmental leadership here today. Some of whom have been working on this from the beginning, are very familiar with it. The governor asked me to come down and just say hello. We toured the water treatment plant. Want you to know that we're here to provide ongoing support to you. You can call me anytime. Wanted to introduce my team that I brought with me tonight. John Putnam is our environmental programs director. He is my deputy on the environmental side of the house. Jen Opila is the division director of our hazardous waste and solid waste division, and Pat Falsgraf is the division director of our water quality control division. So just wanted to say hello, tell you that we appreciate the ongoing partnership, and introduce myself. And these folks are really the experts in this issue, but they're here tonight if you have any questions for us.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
I had the opportunity to meet with Jill and her staff earlier today, and so I would like to say thank you to all of you for coming down. Did have a couple comments that I would appreciate if you would pass along to the governor from me. Essentially, coming in, I was going to raise a lot of hell tonight. But, you know, after having the opportunity to talk to you to the side, I'm really appreciative of Jill, of you coming down. However, there's still a couple of things that are bothering me. Since Governor Polis has been in office, since my first initial contact with him on Valentine's Day, 14 February, the governor has come to Colorado Springs 3 to 4 times. The governor has also gone to Pueblo on one occasion. January 25th he was here, May 14th he was here, not here, but in Colorado Springs, and also Pueblo, where he signed House Bill 1013, Senate Bills 176, House Bill 1147, Senate Bill 174, Senate Bill 001, Senate Bill 065, House Bill 1287. More recently, July 17th, he met with the military and also CDOT in regards to transportation. And you know, the governor has done a lot of things in regards to education kindergarten, things of that nature. But water is essential of life. And there will be no kindergarten, no high school students going to that next level as far as incentives to get them into college. And in my opinion, he has neglected the importance of this water issue down here in Fountain Valley. Had the opportunity to reach out to the county assessor today. When you look at the demographics of Fountain, from Fountain to Strathmore Hills, the county assessor said that you're looking in the realm of 54,000 people. This is the last census 9 years ago. And then if you include wide field security, you're looking at 78,000 people. Once again, the next census will be done next year. So those numbers are nowhere today where they were then when they took them. And it goes back to the severeness of this contamination issue. We've had a phenomenal partnership with you all, with the Pentagon, with the Air Force. But in my opinion, we're missing that one key element, and that's the governor, acknowledging that there is a problem here that has existed. We have done such a phenomenal job in our resource efforts, our partnerships, that is set national precedents. And I just think it's a shame that this man has been in our backyard, our front yard, and he has not even had the common courtesy to stop in to assure the citizens of Fountain Valley that he is monitoring this situation, that he has intentions of setting precedent to put things in place to protect our water rights in our water contamination issues. House Bill 1279, I believe, and Sharon, you can correct me, I believe the originator of that was Representative State Landgraf. No? Exum? But it was a bipartisan.
Bipartisan, they signed onto it, but Tony Exum wrote the bill.
Okay, and essentially that was to ban toxic firefighting foam. And he did not even have the gall to come down here to sign that bill. Instead, he signed it in Arvada. And the last I checked, Arvada does not have, never had the same contamination issues that we've had here. And so I think it's important for all elected officials, regardless if you're on city council, any type of municipality, that you acknowledge when you have constituents, regardless if they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, it's important that you reach out to them to let them know that there is a concern and that you're going to do anything while you are sitting in a certain seat of trust and authority to help those individuals, those cities, those towns, those municipalities get through whatever quagmire it is that they're going through. This is not a lighthearted issue, as I indicated earlier. And Jill, trust me, I'm not chastising you. Like I said, I think you're a wonderful person. I love the work that you're doing. And I just hope that you take some portion of this message back to the governor. Because in my opinion, like I said, I think it's disrespectful that you're going to come in my front yard, my backyard, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4+ times, and you don't even take the common courtesy to stop in and say hello. And that's no reflection on you. You know, once again, I just want to be clear. But water is is the essential thing of life. And so for him to ignore this, you know, it disturbs me. And I just hope that when you go back with your team, that you talk about how wonderful we are. And I hope that you talk about the part. Well, I hope you talk about how wonderful I am. But seriously, I hope that you go back and you talk to him about the great things that we've done being in this position that we're in. I hope you talk to him about the partnerships that we've had with the Air Force, with the Pentagon, with the Health Department. And let me say, the Health Department in El Paso County has been phenomenal. The people in Fountain Wide Field security have been phenomenal when it comes in terms of cutting back to help us get back on track. And so, you know, just let him know that he does have 100,000+ strong people in the southern corner of El Paso County that would like him to recognize us and the struggles that we're going through. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Thompson?
I'd like to thank you for coming down here today, too. Anytime I've met with people from your department, they just blow me away with their knowledge and how smart they are. I've heard of positions and things that I never knew existed, in the scientific world. And so the thing I'd like to give your team is everybody puts it down into, they kind of stop, and they know they're talking way above our heads because we're looking totally blank, but then they will put it down into real world terms that I think most of us can understand, because we've learned how to say perfluorinated compounds. It doesn't even anything we knew before. Now, don't ask me anymore, but I've got that one mastered. But I think that's really important, but I think I'm going to kind of echo what Councilmember Thomas said down there. It was disappointing when he signed the bill. We had a lot of citizens that worked really, really hard on that bill and went up to Denver to testify. I myself went up to testify. And I think it was kind of disappointing that he, and it made me question if he really understands what the bill and what the problem is down here. It's not a public safety issue to sign it in a fire department in a city that doesn't have water contamination. It's a bill that should have been signed in a city that has water contamination to show that I really care about it. So I echo what he says and feel very strongly that needs to go back. I talked to a lot of representatives and senators, and none of them could ever remember a bipartisan bill by 4 representatives, Representative Exum, Landgraf, Senators Lee and Heisey, from the same county. You just don't get that with bills. And for him to sign it up in somewhere that didn't even have the issue was really, really sad. And again, it made me question whether he truly understands what the issue is down here. So please pass that along, because it's not a public safety bill. It is because we want to protect our firefighters and people who get into it. But the larger picture is we have 125,000 people down here that have their drinking water contaminated. We're the largest, and you know this, the largest populated area in the United States. There might be a larger acreage, but we're the most populous area. And so I think it would behoove him to maybe rethink his schedule next time he's going to be down in this area. But again, I think your team has been wonderful. And I do appreciate you guys. I know we had to reschedule it a couple times, so I couldn't fit it in today because I had other meetings, but thank you so much for coming down.
Thank you.
So.
May I respond? Or?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. So council members, I just really want to thank you for your comments, and I want to assure you that I will take them back to the governor, and I will extend your invite to him to come down. We have been briefing the governor and getting him up to speed on this issue. We've just recently drafted a statewide PFAS action plan that we're working on. And you all, your community, you were really the pioneers in this. And you've set an amazing example for community response. And we will all learn from you, and you will see yourselves in this plan. So, I will let the governor know your remarks. We really appreciate your time today, and I will also pass along the kudos to our staff and appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I agree with what they said, but thank you for taking the time to come down. I know driving the gap is just a pain in the neck anymore, and it really is. And so for you guys that come down, and because you're pretty well versed in what's going on with it anyway, and please, we want to keep that open door with you all, with Curtis and Mike, and we're called pioneers, and this is something we didn't want to pioneer, and it got dropped in our lap, and so we did the best we could. So we're definitely going to continue that push forward because it's important for us. And the assurances I say to everybody is we're providing good, clean water, and we're going to do the best we can, regardless of what happens, and hopefully we can get a handle on it fast. So thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Okay. We'll keep moving forward. Our next presentation is from the American Legion, post number 5, recognizing students for the Veterans Memorial Garden at the Fountain Fort Carson High School. Mr. Linder?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Al Lender, REA Road. Also, I'm Senior Vice Commander of Post 5, Colorado Springs. I'd like to introduce our Commander, Eric DeVault. Tonight, we're here to give a presentation to a young lady. And I just want to read a paragraph here. It is my hope that military students and families recognize that they are not only welcome here, but they are appreciated and loved. I hope that students will come back and take pictures in this garden and know that this is the town and this is the school where they belong. On the board, you see a plaque that these students got together, and Rachel, personally with her classmates and students and rest of the teachers, put this together at the high school. It is something that is very well deserving, and we're here to show our appreciation. And while we're here, I'd like to recognize Jan Hinckley, our Ladies Auxiliary. And also in the back, you see a bunch of folks with leather vests on. Those are American Legion Riders. Dano McGovern is the president of the Riders. You see us on the road many times where we go out and we collect money and toys for children. We also bury our dead. You see us on the roads with flags on our bikes. That's what we do. So I am going to turn it over to Eric.
Al, can I just say one thing? I don't know if you guys realize, but we're on YouTube now, and when you turn around, if the microphone doesn't catch it, the people who are watching on YouTube aren't going to be able to hear what you guys are saying. So we want to make sure our wider audience hears you.
You're okay. You're okay. Go ahead.
Mayor and council members, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. We are here tonight to recognize the contributions to the Fountain and Fort Carson High School made by Rachel Johnson. While most high school students are concerned with getting good grades, hanging out with their friends, social media, or planning for their future, Rachel decided to do something that would take some time, planning, and a lot of sweat equity. She even went throughout the community to enlist local businesses for financial aid. Rachel came up with the idea that would beautify the school grounds while at the same time honor those who serve our country. The Fountain Fort Carson High School has over 70% of students who are affiliated with the military. However, even students who do not have a direct connection with the military are affected by the sacrifice of those in the military through their friends and community. Rachel worked tirelessly with many members of the Fountain Fort Carson High School, teachers and staff, the JRTC program, and the class of 2019, all whom contributed to make this project a success. Rachel Johnson has chosen not to look inward and see how she could help herself, but has instead decided that some things are bigger than oneself and elected to contribute to the greater good of her family, high school, and community. Rachel not only contributed to the betterment of her high school, she has banded together people from all over Fountain, which is the very definition of community. The American Legion serves not only veterans and their families, but communities we reside in. It is our honor to recognize local community members who inspire us through their community service. Rachel's example is something we can all aspire to. I wish her good luck in college, where I'm sure she will continue to influence her future friends and classmates in a positive manner. Thanks, Rachel, for all your hard work. I would now like to... I would now like to present Rachel with a certificate of appreciation that reads, the American Legion Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate of appreciation is gratefully presented to Rachel Johnson in recognition and sincere appreciation of outstanding service and assistance which contributed to the advancement of the American Legion programs and activities dedicated to God and country. Presented by the American Legion Post 5, Department of Colorado, this 13th day of August 2019, signed by Al Lender, Senior Vice Commander, and Eric DeVault, Commander.
Rachel, this is $350 for you to do what you want. And Rachel, what's the,
Oh, we also have certificates of appreciation for the Fountain Fort Carson High School class of 2019.
so the students
you have
that are
any
here
students?
that were part of this, please come forward. This is for your class. Teachers and staff, Mr. Chandler, is it? Sir, thank you kindly. Is anyone here from your junior ROTC program? Okay, well, here you go. Thank you all for helping your community and doing good for them. And from everyone from Post 5 in Colorado Springs, we're all here. Thank you.
Okay, if I can corner Rachel as well. The only reason why is she's one of those kids that this town can be proud of. She, as you guys said, she doesn't. It's not about her. It's about everything that she has done for the community and has done for the community. Has been a big part of the community for a long time, and I'm very proud of everything that you've done. And I know you're off to Colorado State University. Go Rams! Is that true?
I actually decided to change schools. I'm going to UCCS now. But it's okay. I still love the Rams. So woohoo, no.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
I'll go
Actually.
visit my friends there or something.
But you know what? Everything that you do, and I think you're going to just kind of continue this off into the future, and whatever you do, you're obviously proven you're going to be very successful. And so we are proud of you, and thank you for all the work that you've done. And you've set a great example, not only for your classmates and underclassmen, but for adults as well. And so, and I can speak to myself, but if we were all a little bit more like you, I think the world will be a lot better place. So good luck wherever you go. And it's not Kansas, so I think that's good. But
You're hurting my parents.
sorry, Brian, but we do congratulate you and best of luck as you start school and get moving.
Well, thank you very much. It was an honor to direct this project and to do something back for the community that served me for so long. So appreciate it.
Okay. And the only other thing I would say, if you all want to go visit the garden, just don't do it during a school day, because then you'll have cops coming around wondering why you're on the ground. So try to make it after school or during the weekends. And it's right there in the front of the building by where the sign is the sign still there? Yeah, it's just right by the sign. So it's
Well, you mean like the sign that announces?
right. Yeah.
It used to be there.
Okay,
It's
so
just it's really obvious.
Okay. Yeah, it's right there in the front. So
Not very subtle.
you won't miss it, but it's pretty cool. So again, don't do it during the day because you'll get some people come and check you out. But thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, Jim Koch told me he was going to be here tonight, but he's not. So I'm going to give you this. This is for Jim and Kathy Koch
Okay. Thank you.
for 22 years of unwavering service.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks. We appreciate all that. And thanks to the American Legion for bringing that to our attention. We'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation. We're bringing up the Fountain Police Department Explorers from the high school. Who's coming up? Sergeant Sanchez. Yeah.
Good evening, City Council members. Mayor Ortega, thank you so much for having us here this evening. It is my distinct honor to kind of brag about my explorers this evening. They just recently participated in a statewide competition with several people, so I'd like to read a quick excerpt about what they had to go through. So 5 of our Fountain PD explorers, Explorer Commander Hannah Solero, Explorer Sergeant Heaven Humbert, who couldn't be here with us this evening, Explorer Sergeant DJ Bunn, Explorer Trinity Hummel, and Explorer Jules Eiflin all competed in the 2019 Law Enforcement Explorer Post Advisory Association of Colorado, better known as LEPAC. The Explorers couldn't have done it without the Explorer Corps Advisor team. I did bring them with me today. It's Officer Matt Engoy, Officer Tammy Gouliot, and Lieutenant Mallet. And then we had countless other officers in our police department that helped train, assist, advise, and mentor all of the Explorers over the last year preparing for this competition. The Explorers completed countless hours of training to include joint training with CSPD and EPSO cadets. They did ride-alongs to make sure they were ready for any type of scenario that they would come up with. During this year's competition, 2 of our Explorers, Explorer Commander Hannah Solero, was a part of a 4-man team. So to kind of give you an idea of what this event entails, there are several law enforcement agencies all around the state of Colorado, including Arizona and Nevada. There was over almost 200 Explorers that were broken down into 47 4-man teams. Explorer Commander Hannah Solero and her 4-man team placed first overall in crisis intervention training. They were faced with an obstacle with mental health, and they had to handle it, and they were able to take first place. So we're very proud of her for that.
Good.
Also, they took second place overall in a high-risk scenario where there was an officer down where they had to go in. Explorer Sergeant DJ Bunn took first place overall in an individual obstacle course, as well as his team took 4th place overall in the CIT experience as well. So we're very proud of them, and I just wanted to come and show them off to you today as well.
Okay. All right. And I'm gonna come down and give some coins. And then you said Heaven was also one of the other ones?
Correct.
Okay, great.
So the last award that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention today, Senior Commander Austin Starnes is graduated last school year and is good, off to bigger and better things. However, I wanted to bring to his attention his community service hours. I submitted to the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, and he was nominated for the Gold Prize. He logged over 500 community service hours while his tenure in the Explorer program. That ranges anywhere from community night in the park to parades to pretty much anything we have in the city. He has one of those faces that you're pretty sure you saw him around doing some kind of event once or another. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that President Trump did send a pretty good letter of recognition and an award. So I wanted to make sure that we presented that with him today. Austin, if you want to step forward. And if I could, I just want to read part of the letter, just an excerpt of it. On behalf of a grateful nation, I thank you for the service to your fellow Americans and those who most in need. Through your dedicated service, you have ensured the continuation of America's unpropelled commitment into improving the lives of others. Mr. President, Donald Trump.
All right, as they're kind of shuffling out, I do want to recognize these kiddos as well. You know, Fountain School District puts out some good kids, and as evidenced by Rachel earlier, and these young adults, just the time they put in for their community. Again, they could be out doing a million other things that kids want to be doing, and they find time for that, but they also find time for their community. And being a junior explorer or a junior ROTC or any of those things, it takes a lot of commitment on their part and their families. I mean, some of them aren't able to drive yet, so you got moms and dads driving them all over the place. So I do want to, again, thank you guys for your leadership that you show at your school, again, with the adults in the room and everywhere else. And please continue your hard work, and best of luck to you as you move forward and as you move through high school and then off after that. So, and to Sergeant Sanchez and Lieutenant Mallet and the team, great job. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to Commander Lewis, who helped with push the program forward, all of our community members that invited us to different types of events. We do have the Fire Auxiliary here that helps us with fundraising to get to these competitions. And then thank you, City Council and Mayor Tega, for supporting our program.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay. All right, busy. Okay, our last presentation for tonight is an overview and summary of the CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation projects.
Correct.
Mr. Evans.
Yes, citizens, mayor, council members, following up those two presentations, no doubt this will be a letdown, okay? I can't live up to that. But I thought it was important. We had attended a meeting last week that CDOT came down and presented to the county commissioners. And I have offered to Commissioner Gonzalez to come up as well, as the county and the city of Fountain infrastructure-wise are facing the same challenges. So I thought it was important just to come, share some of this information. This is a summary. I do have a packet. If any of you would like it, we can make some copies for you. But I think this will help with some of the myths, some of the questions that we get regarding CDOT. Of course, CDOT has roads that border our city. So there's a lot of things that folks expect that is coming in the future for CDOT. And I wanted to give this presentation, hopefully, to kind of give some realistic expectations to some of those thoughts that are out there. So basically what CDOT did is they started this in May, and as you can see, they conducted 60, or they are in the progress of conducting 64 county meetings. So part of this is part of their public outreach, where they're really just going out. They're not making any promises. They're not giving any commitments of the projects we're going to look at here in the future. They're just going out and getting community feedback. So this was the meeting for El Paso County itself. You can see the different outreach they're doing is very similar to what we do here in the city. They're utilizing Facebook, print, as we do our local paper. We don't do much TV and radio expense-wise, but they're doing outreach to try to get ideas in and feedback from the citizens themselves. So what they've heard so far from El Paso County itself, this is kind of in the priority. Road conditions, they have heard feedback on right now. Road condition and safety is the highest ranking concern. I would agree with that here in the city of Fountain. Our road conditions and the safety of those road conditions are really becoming an issue for us. Growth and congestion is second. We are seeing that, but as you will see here in a second, we are not we don't have the amount of growth that a lot of other areas in the county and the state are seeing right now. More travel options and expanding intercity transit is a close third. Actually, City Council Member Williams from Colorado Springs came forward, and he put this in very good terms. He discussed a little bit of his experience at his position of Secretary of State, and he said it became necessary that CDOT and the state made the determination, and I don't remember that he mentioned a time frame, but he said they moved $7 billion of future project funding into a maintenance line, because the roads and the condition of the roads statewide have become such an issue. They don't have the ability to leave it in where they can expand and improve our transit system around the state. They moved it years ago, and now it's necessary just to maintain the roads that we have. So when he said that, it kind of brought light to me as well, that everyone hopes and expects that we're going to see improvements in our transportation system, but really CDOT is in a mode where they're just trying to take care of what they currently have. Mayor, you mentioned the GAP project. I think it's a good example for everybody to remember. That's a 17-mile project. All they're doing is adding one lane to both north and south, and it's a $350 million project for 17 miles. So that just gives us something when we look at our projects to understand that right now, sadly, is the cost of construction within the entire state. So with that, they talked about the population increase, and as you can see, in El Paso County, the population is expected to increase by 39% from 2020 to 2045. When you see that type of explosive growth, you would wish and you would hope that we would see improvements, and instead of adding 1 lane, we would be continually adding 2, 3, 4 lanes to get ready for that future growth. But again, that wasn't discussed, and there was no promises made that that is going to occur because the funding doesn't exist. This basically is a congestion chart. So as you can see, they have it green being low congestion, yellow being moderate congestion, red being high congestion. If you focus down here in the fountain area itself, you can see, and this is 2030, so we're only 11 years away of this. There's only a little portion of our system in here that is green. That basically would be up past the airport along Powers, coming down into Fountain, and then as it gets into Mesa Ridge, it goes from green immediately to the high congestion area. If you look at 85, 87 as it comes through town, they have a little section down here that they project along in the crest area, that will stay low congestion. Some folks that live down there, Deborah and some others, wouldn't say that's even low congestion right now, but you can see the rest of 85, 87 is a red and it's high congestion. If you look at I-25 all the way through our entire southern area down past Fountain, that might be the PPIR area. You can see by 2030 they expect that all to be high red congestion. So these are the major projects that they have laid out. There is 2 pages. I'll show you both of those real quick, and then I will go back to the first. I highlighted this. This mentions I-25 capacity and safety improvements from South Academy to Colorado 16 or Highway 16. That really is the only project on this list of 2 pages that you can see that will really impact close to Fountain, and that's along I-25. One of the big projects that you don't see here that we constantly get questions on and that we talk about, and actually our city engineer, Brandy Williams, got up and spoke about this. She was one of 2 people that spoke about it, and that is the future Powers extension or bypass that you can see on some master transportation plans that's supposed to extend from Powers, go out east through the Cane Ranch area, go out all the way and bypass down to the PPIR exit. You can see that isn't even on this list. And now keep in mind, as you look at this list, it doesn't say these are the projects that are going to be constructed. These are just the priorities that they have for El Paso County itself. So when that was discussed, if it's not on this list, they basically know, and we know this from some of our internal meetings, and I see Sharon shaking her head because she's very involved with PPACG and their committees. There hasn't been any money earmarked for these projects, and they haven't said any of these will be completed by this date. So we have to work under the assumption as a staff where we can't depend on something like a Powers extension to assist us because it's not even on their radar at this point. Do I see during my career or a lifetime that they may have the money to do this? When you look at some of the projects that they have on this list and they talked about during that meeting, just to give you an example, and Lojinos or Brandy, I hope you'll mention or help me here if I get it wrong, but they talked about the Powers improvements, just extending it to I-25 north, then through Colorado Springs, and it didn't come all the way down south to us, trying to put in grade separations at all the intersections, just that portion being over $1 billion. So if you look at those lane miles and then you compare them to what it would cost to complete the Powers extension or bypass all the way down to Pikes Peak International Raceway, we would be looking at an excess of $1 billion or $2 billion. So that just tells us that we want to make sure that everything we do here locally, we don't keep going back and saying, well, CDOT is going to help, CDOT is going to come in and do something. We need to make sure that we have those priorities ourselves. So what have we done ourselves, and what are we seeking out to do? We've talked about this. We talked about this at our workshops that the Roadway Focus Group had with City Council. And you've been briefed on these, but we wanted to make sure that we showed this to the public. This is a page of 6 projects that Brandy and her team has applied through the federal highway funds. This gets funneled through PPACG, but this is a list of what we know is coming on our major thoroughfares that we're going to need assistance in the future. You can see here the completion timeframes that extends all the way from 2020 to 2045, so we're trying to look in the future. You can see in the next column the estimated project costs. Right now, we have seen for the last several years that this area of construction has gone up 4 to 5% a year, and they project that that's going to continue for the next 3 years or so. So you can see, I'll use Link Road just as an example. Link Road, to rebuild it and do the improvements it needs from Old Pueblo all the way north to Kane, that project cost is estimated at $9.6 million. Under this grant funding, the federal share would be $8 million, but at Fountain, we have a $1.6 million share just for that one project. So if you add all 6 of them up, we'd be looking at $34 million, and Fountain's share of those would be almost $6 million. So I wanted to share that we are out there, we are trying to get the different grants. This type of grant, basically who we compete with is El Paso County and Colorado Springs. So if we wouldn't have our matching funds, let's say, then that means we would lose that project and they would get that funding for one of their projects. That's how that works in a summary. So we also added the criteria down here just to make sure that those projects meet it. Now, that was about major thoroughfares, but we want to make sure when we do any of these presentations that we don't forget about the conditions of our neighborhood roads. That's something that we get questions constantly on. You know, when can we get into those neighborhoods and fix those roads? So what we did was we just gave a couple examples of the 3 zones that have been identified by the roadway focus group and just some of the issues so that people are aware. Naturally, people don't understand what's going on in different neighborhoods if they don't live there. A lot of times people don't drive every neighborhood. They get into routines and they drive the same major thoroughfare and they're very familiar with their neighborhood roads, but they may not understand what's going on in neighborhoods they don't live in. So in this example, you can see Zone 3. This is an example of Darneal Drive. It may look like wet pavement, but really actually that's subsurface water. Sorry about that. Can you get me back, Chris? There's always IT issues with me. If you can see here, this is basically subsurface water that's being pumped out by the homes. It's actually eating away the roadway. So on this situation, it's about a $300,000 to $400,000 fix. We hope we'll have to tear up this entire road, put in some under drains to be able to get that water off and into a stormwater and then away from the infrastructure so it doesn't keep damaging it. So that's an entire rebuild there. This is a Cross Creek subdivision with these roads are not that old, but if you can see to the left, if you can see the ripple effect to the road on Creekfront Drive, on the right, Bentwater Drive, those are just some examples of how these roads are going to be complete rebuilds in this Zone 2 area of Cross Creek and almost the entire area. Heritage is one of our worst areas. This is Lindamood Drive. And again, almost the entire neighborhood of Lindamood, or check that, of Heritage, we have to completely rip out the roads, rebuild the base, and then rebuild the roads back. So we wanted to make sure that we don't just focus on our major thoroughfares, that when we talk about our infrastructure, we look at these. We haven't found these issues, and Commissioner Lojinos, last week, they had a special meeting on the old Colorado Center area, not old, just the Colorado Center area off of Mark Shuffle. Their roads are about identical to Heritage. So as a county commission, they're sitting down and trying to figure out how to rebuild that entire subdivision's roads. And as their public works director said, just to go into that one neighborhood, that would be more than their entire yearly budget for the entire county. So this is going on around us, it's bordering us, but we want to make sure people don't ask those questions, as well as CDOT going to come in and save the day. They're not. So we need to find out solutions. So I've asked Commissioner Lojinos if he'd like to say anything.
Thank you, Todd. So Lojinos Gonzalez, County Commissioner, District 4. So with the CDOT coming out last week, a couple things we did also highlight. So with the state emphasis and all the elected officials trying to get behind some of the military projects, there were some additional dollars that were committed by the state, so CDOT, to some projects. I believe 2 were actually support the Fountain area. So one is going to be the I-25 portion south of Academy Boulevard, and then one will be improvements to the gate, I believe 19 or 20. Charter Oak, which would then improve the access to Gate 19, which will help alleviate some of the delays going into the city of Fountain. And so there are some, even though you saw the project list not having a lot of projects or one for the south side, there are additional projects that were being funded separately as improvements to the military installations. So that was a benefit. One of the other things I highlighted as the list was shown, I was very specific in highlighting that nearly all, and as you saw, nearly all the projects are from the middle of Colorado Springs north. And I highlighted that, I believe, 2 different times. And as I said, in a mid and longer term, you cannot just look at the growing density between Denver and Colorado Springs, but you must look at what will become the new combined hub of Pueblo and southern El Paso County, which is Fountain. And so I brought that up as well as something that needs to be highlighted. I am meeting with your engineer, I believe, on Thursday, so we can review a lot of these projects. And what I would recommend is, because they do come around once a year to talk to the county commissioners and re-look at those prioritized lists, is that we have a good consolidated list of maybe 2 or 3 projects for the down here that we can try to add to the priority list. And so that's some of the things I think we're going to talk about with your engineer and going forward. But that would be my intent for next year, is to try to get a couple of those added to the list through the presentation. Any questions for me?
No, go ahead.
I just really appreciate the way I emailed you a list at the last minute of my wish list of projects down here, and I understood you did a very good job of presenting those
Oh, thank you.
at the thing, so I really appreciate that. But just for the record of our citizens here, I'd like to, I think I remembered most of them, but again, I
Oh, you
really
want to highlight
appreciate
them
you
again? Sure.
highlighting them. Again, you already mentioned Gate 19. The one that I keep pushing, and Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments is not just El Paso County. We have Teller and Park County, so everybody's in there fighting for the dollars, and it's very difficult. So one of my things on the wish list that I keep pushing is to widen I-25 to 3 lanes all the way to the Pueblo border. I think it's necessary. I think it just, we have these accidents out here, and there's nowhere for our
And I
public safety to
specifically
work.
included that when I talked about the new hub
south of
Pueblo.
exit 128 to continue working on the cable barrier project from crossover accidents. Widening the shoulders, if we can't get I-25 to 3 lanes, at least widening it to the shoulders to like 10, 12 feet so that our public safety people have time to work. Or if you get a flat tire, you can even just get off safely. Highway 115, widening it and some turning lanes to get more safely onto Fort Carson gates. And this is my really ultimate off-the-wall dream list, a dedicated right turn lane on Mesa Ridge Parkway heading west onto I-25. So you would pull off all that traffic that's going north on I-25 before they even cross the bridge to Fort Carson. I know that's an ultimate wish list, but if you don't have them, they never get on anybody's list. So I really appreciate you presenting that list and taking time and meeting with Brandy and Todd, and I think the more we work together like this, the stronger it's going to be. So I think you're doing a great job representing our end of the county. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate the feedback. And again, we're going to continue to work on that for next year particularly. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mayor, real quickly, I would just like to also state, Commissioner Gonzalez did do a great job, very vocal, and spoke up quite a bit about the south end of the county, so we do appreciate that. Is there any other questions that I can answer for anyone?
No, just a comment, and we're going to get into our own little problems that we have here. But then, and they're big to us. But then you get to the county level, and then to the state level, and then to the national level, and just it compounds itself. So we're competing against all of these things, and with whatever we have, and trying to make it move forward. So thanks, Commissioner Gonzalez, for fighting a good fight for us, and we'll keep pushing. It's difficult because when it comes down to it, I remember when I was going to PPACG meetings, and the discussion came up around the interstates and things, and El Paso County, everything south of Denver, we're fighting Denver Boulder, and they're the ones getting all the projects, the stretch from Denver to Fort Collins, they think that's more important than the stretch from Colorado Springs to Denver, and so and for some reason, I'm not going to get into the whole politics here, but it's kind of like California and New York trying to run the country with their popular vote. So it's kind of the same thing here. We deal with the same thing against Denver Boulder. So we're constantly clawing and scratching away, and it's taken the broader community with the city, and then we join with the other cities around, Mayor Suthers and all them, and then of course the counties, to really push these buttons and get that money down here, spent down here on our roads. And so we'll keep plugging. It's hard, it's difficult, so.
We will. And just representation-wise, we've got Sharon that's on the PPACG board. We've got our city engineer, Brandy Williams, who's on the PPACG Transportation Committee. And then Brandy's also with the CDOT Southern El Paso County or whatever committee. So we've got voices in all of these decisions, and they're very loud as well. And she was up there doing the same. One other update.
We have great citizens on the citizen boards too.
Great,
And,
there we
and
go.
so we're really fighting to have a good representation down
The
here.
more the better, yeah. An update, we've got another one, and Brandy's really built a good relationship with the Region 2 here in CDOT. So they're helping us with different, but one bit of bad news they gave us is the Sneffels intersection lights that were planned, CDOT was going to commit them in next summer. That has moved down their priority list, or are we back up? We got it back on? That's why we have that representation.
Forgot about that
So,
one. I was fighting
yeah.
for that one too.
That's
Yes.
why
I was
have
gonna go
Brandy.
down and she got it back up, so. If we didn't
That's
have
why
that
we have Brandy.
representation, we wouldn't get those things. So great job, Brandy, we appreciate it. And Sharon, you keep being loud too. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
The good news is when I met the guy the other day for the first time, the new CDOT Region 2 director, he said, "Oh, Fountain," and rolled his eyes. So, I mean, that's really good. He knows where we're at. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thanks to everybody. Okay. We have no board, committee, commission appointments tonight, so we'll just keep moving forward. City council agenda requested announcements. I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem. Anything? Mr. Geek?
Not right now.
Mr. Applegate?
Nothing right now.
Ms. Thompson?
I just wanted to kind of let everybody know, we're starting the 2045, a continuation of this plan, Todd, on the, that Todd just presented, on the specialized transportation portion of it. And I went to their meeting yesterday, and it was really interesting, and I think that's another place where we're going to need to continue to have really good representation, or our bigger neighbors to the north are going to be taking the brunt of that. And if you're not familiar with specialized transportation is used not only to get our senior citizens around, but to get our intellectually developmentally disabled population out of the house and around. So it's very vital, and it is the most expensive type of transportation because a lot of it is door-to-door or door-through-door transportation. And I think you understand the importance of it, Mr. Mayor, from your job. But we need to keep continuing to fight for those dollars down in our community, and be fighting for what those mean, because people want to stay in their homes. And sometimes when you stay in your home, you may not be able to drive anymore, and you can't always depend on family or friends to get you where you need to go. And so it's very, very important that they be able to have the transportation to just get to the grocery store, get to a doctor's appointment, or even if they just want to go see their friend and get out of the house. So we're going to keep that conversation open, and if you have any thoughts on that, please email it to me, because I think the more citizen involvement we have and input is going to be very helpful on that process.
Okay. All right. The only thing I have, just two things. Reminder: Labor Day festival's coming up. Chamber, you guys are good as far as floats. Is that time passed for reservation? Okay. But just remember that's that weekend, and then we do have petitions that you can collect for seats for our city council. We have 2 at-large and 1 for Ward 2. So I think you still pick up petitions until
The 26th.
the 26th. So I understand we have 5 for at-large and 1 for Ward 2. So good luck to everybody. All right. We will move on to public to be heard. Citizens may address the council on items that are not on the agenda. We ask that you sign up with the clerk prior to the meeting. We may not be able to provide a meeting answer, but we'll direct staff to follow up. Tonight, we're going to really try to stick to it as much as possible, just because of everything else we have going on. We just ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and hopefully the lights are working. I have, I think, 6 or 7 cards here tonight, so we'll just get through them. The other thing I wanted to also, in the past, and it's always been, I don't know why, but when you come up, you address who you are for the record, and ever since I've been coming, is do your name and address. And so we're going to stop the address thing, mainly because we're on live stream now, and you never know. It's just things going on now. So the best thing for you is just to come on up, go ahead and state your name, and that'll be on the record. And if we need your contact information, and if you don't want to share that, that's completely fine. But if we need your contact information for something we need to follow up on, we'll have you, if you haven't filled it out on a card, we'll just have you meet with someone to get it to us, and we'll move from there. So when you come up to address, even if it's for a later agenda item, you just need to state your name, that you're here, and that's just for our record, so we have that. Okay, I'll start with, in the order I got them. So our first one is Mr. David Falls.
Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to come up and talk. David Falls, I do reside on Old Pueblo Road, and the reason I bring that up is because a couple of weeks ago, there's some cones in front of my house, so I walked outside to find out what was going on. I talked to some construction guys, and they said they're putting in a sidewalk in front of Old Pueblo Road. And I said, well, why is it on the west side and not the east side? And they said, well, that was our intent all along, is to put it on the east side. But the city manager or the city said that they wanted it on the west side. I said, well, who do I contact? And they gave me the phone number to Brandy. So I called Brandy, and I asked her what was going on. She said, we're putting a sidewalk in on that side. I said, why not on the east side? Why on the west side and towards the residents? And she said the idea was the safe passage to school initiative. Okay, so if you follow that, that means that all those students from Ventana will cross over Old Pueblo Road, go on the west side, cross back over Old Pueblo Road a second time, and then cross back over Link to get on the east side where the school's at. So that's not the safest route to school. And if it's not safe, then it's not smart. So we have to really look at that. And while I have you have a couple of minutes, I want to piggyback on what Mr. Thompson said earlier about the professional courtesy from Governor Polis, not telling you or not talking to you guys about the tainted water here. Well, nobody from the city of Fountain told me they were putting a sidewalk in front of my house. Not a phone call, not a knock on the door, nothing. I found out from construction workers that it was going in front of my house. And now I'm being told that the way the path is, or the way the sidewalk is, it's actually going to shave off part of my property. Nobody's told me that either. I found that out from construction workers. So I think that there should be some professional courtesy down to the citizens as well. So I just wanted to put it on record that this is not the safest route to school, and we have to take care of our children. There was a lot of school kids in here today. We got to make sure that they're getting to school safe. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, just real quick, we talked to Montina, and you even brought this up with her at lunch. I didn't think we could do a safe routes to school from that area. So, he did that. I don't. Okay, and that. Please.
Brandy Williams, city engineer, and I'm probably going to tag team with Christy Martinez from the planning department just in case you have any additional questions. So yes, this is a requirement that, again, Christy can correct me if I'm wrong, that has its roots in the federal government, and because of that, we have then adopted it with our own codes. So they are required to have a safe route to school for the high school from this development because it's within a mile as the crow flies. Not my rules, but that's just how it is. There is a railroad track that crosses between this development and the high school. We met with both the Public Utilities Commission and BNSF and Union Pacific and asked, is there any way we can cross and have these students cross that railroad track anywhere except Link Road? And they said no, over and over and over again. And they even looked at the route yesterday, and they agree it's a very long way to get from point A to point B, but those railroads are not willing to take on the liability to have those students cross anywhere but at Link Road, where there's already a designated crossing for vehicles and for traffic. So we actually had the diagnostic for it yesterday to have the conversation, where they also affirmed the fact that the sidewalk needs to be on the south side of Link Road. So we had that conversation again yesterday, and the decision was reaffirmed. So I didn't make this decision in a vacuum. It was done with the engineer, with the school district, with the planning department, with the railroads, with the Public Utilities Commission. Everybody has been on board. So We all realize it's not an ideal situation, but given the safety concerns of the railroad tracks and the students and the risk of drowning if they're crossing underneath where Jimmy Camp Creek Railroad Bridge is, this is the safest option given all the entities involved. Any questions? You want to add anything, Christy?
No, I think you've covered most of it. Christy Martinez, Planning Department. We did work with the developer and the school district early on in the process to identify various routes. The safe routes to school, not only are they designated through federal regulations, it's also based on the school district's transportation routes and how they establish those.
Randy, what about his question from the east side to the west side? If that's why it's on
Correct.
the west side rather than the east side.
So there is a drainage structure right at the corner of Link and Old Pueblo. So, right, we could have gone down the east side, and then they would have had to cross over, not at an intersection, because they can't cross over at the intersection due to that drainage structure being there. So again, to attempt to have traffic look for students, they normally look right at an intersection, and when you have a mid-block crossing, those aren't as safe as actual crossings right at a designated intersection. So that's how we came to that decision.
Can I follow up
Real
real quick?
quick. You have to be on record. You can't.
I'll make it real quick. I got 52 seconds. Students aren't stupid. They're going to find the quickest route to school. I know it's been a long time since I went to school, and looking around the room, it looks like it's been a long time for a lot of us that's been to school. But we found the quickest way to school. So we need to find a way to work with that route to get the kids to school. I know kids are not going to cross and go west when their school is east. I promise you. We got to find a better way to do this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, real quick, sir.
Oh,
Sir, if I could. Sir, I want to make sure we apologize to you for you not being contacted by one of our staff members. It sounds like we depended on the developer and their contractors to that, and we apologize. That won't happen again. We'll make sure we get with you, but I apologize to you, okay?
okay. Yeah, sometimes the answers seem so simple, and then the politics get involved, the government gets involved, and because to me it's like I think the same thing. I'm like, why can't we just take them underneath the bridge behind the development? That's the quickest way.
Railroad said no.
What about an overpass? A pedestrian overpass?
Yeah.
Money is not
Okay.
going to cause them a cure if a kid across the road and get hit.
I agree.
Right, yeah. Okay, thank you. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, it's just, school district's aware, everybody's aware. The likelihood, and I don't mean to trivialize this or minimize this, is that likelihood of kids walking from all the way over there to the high school is slim. But I mean, the opportunity's there, and you're exactly right. They're not gonna do all that, and I get it. But it's required by what the codes and the things are, and as silly as it is, I don't know what the answer is at this point. But there was a lot of organizations involved with that, so and there's nothing we can. Okay. Okay. All right, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And then, do you need a follow-up or anything with him on anything else?
Let's make sure we get his name, Brandy, and we'll.
And I have his contact information here, so, okay. All right, and I should know this, and I think every time I mess it up, Mr. Chimino.
Whatever you want to call me.
Okay. As long as what? The check doesn't bounce? Oh. I won't be writing any checks anyway, so, because they will.
Dean Chimino, just wanted to bring up a suggestion. Well, thanks for letting me speak to the board, or to the council. So we keep talking about revenue streams for our roads. I planted a seed a few days ago, planted another seed this afternoon with Todd and some. My suggestion is that the city take a look at our use tax versus our sales tax. Because of the way our use tax structure is, we're losing 1.75% of that tax revenue that we could possibly be capturing. So just a suggestion. It's one small piece of a huge pie, but all the pieces add up to make a pie.
So just a suggestion, and that's
Okay.
it. It's nice and simple this time. We're all friends.
Yeah,
Right,
and
yeah.
I met,
And no, and I do appreciate that, because we have looked at those in the past, and I think we've even upped some of our use taxes on some certain things, and I don't know specifically for roads, but definitely, and I think those are part of those conversations that we have already, but any specific use tax you're thinking of?
Well, the one that comes to my mind is, since I'm in the car business, is if you buy a car, if you live in Fountain and buy a car in Fountain, you're taxed at 3.75%. If you live in Fountain and buy a car anywhere else in the world other than Fountain, you're taxed at 2%. And if you stop and think of how many temporary tags you saw after last year's hailstorms, that's a lot of revenue that we just didn't capture that we could have. And that's just one small piece of that tax.
Okay.
So it's just seems like a way to capture more money. A lot of the citizens don't understand how the use tax works. I think Todd mentioned he didn't even really know about the use tax before this afternoon, and we talked about it. So it's just something that I would think would warrant some investigation. Ms. Thompson said, well, she tell me how to get it on the ballot, and that's not my job. My job is to suggest, and I would be happy to participate, but something like that needs to be initiated from a council standpoint, not from a citizen standpoint, in my opinion.
Okay.
As humble as it is.
so we agreed to open the door to the conversation because we're open to anything that a citizen brings to us in terms of revenue stream or tax saving. And so I think it's a big conversation that needs to happen with finance, different staff members to figure out if it's even, Troy, if it's even legal, it can be done. So I think it's just a big conversation. It's not going to be an easy conversation, but
That's
ones
why
that needs,
nobody's dealt with it in all these years
it's
that
one
we've
that,
had it.
that needs to be looked at, and maybe the answer is yes, maybe the answer is no, maybe, who knows? We don't know at this point, but yeah, we're going to look at it.
Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Ms. Rosenbaum? I know I saw her earlier.
Hi, I'm Liz Rosenbaum. I live in the rural outlying areas of Fountain. I'm also here representing Fountain Valley Clean Water Coalition. We have a meeting on Thursday, and our topic is going to be on local elections from water districts, school boards, Fountain City Council. We have a great group of people in our water coalition that want to be more involved. And what brought on that topic was in June, I got a grant to go to Boston for the second national PFAS conference. And I got to listen to scientists, and I got to meet coalition members from all over the world, including one in Italy. So I love Facebook Translate, so I can keep in touch with her. And our topic was to have one meeting this year that focused on community involvement. So we're picking August for that. So if there's anyone who is considering running, wanting to run, you need signatures for something, Thursday at 6:30 is a great time to come in. And if any of you would like to come and talk about the time commitment of holding a public office, that should bring more interest, is, something that we all want to do as a community. Another talking point is the ATSDR agency. Oh gosh, this is like the government alphabet soup, right? Agency for Toxic Substances Disease Registry. It's part of the CDC, has selected our community for a 1,000-person health assessment, and it'll be in tomorrow's newspaper about that. They will be here between June and July of 2020. So the people in the coalition, their emails or contacts, I'll be sharing with the people organizing this study. And they only selected 8 communities. So this is a really big deal that our coalition members have been writing letters and emailing, and I even did a trip to Washington, DC, and just to talk about how amazing our community is. Our water districts are doing a phenomenal job where other communities haven't been as lucky, when I've been speaking with other coalition leaders across the U.S., and we do phone conferencing once a month just to say, hey, what's working for you, what's not working, just so all of our communities can be healthier. So you're invited every third Thursday at 6:30 in the basement of Security Fire Station number 1 on Security Boulevard. So thank you.
Okay, and this is a conference just on this, like what we're dealing with? The PFAS
Right, so it's the second national PFAS conference, and they had scientists talking about the studies that they've done independently. There's one study that we're trying to get done here in our community. Dr. Adgate, who did our blood testing, is waiting on a $400,000 grant to do further blood testing. For one of them would be to look into the effectiveness of vaccination in our children here, based off of other scientific studies that PFAS stops the effectiveness or limits the effectiveness of vaccination in children. So there's a lot of parents with children who have compromised immune systems or they have to have a certain immunization, like for chickenpox. My friend, she lives on the East Coast, and with me talking about this, she realized her friend's son wasn't able to get immunized against chickenpox, and they kept testing him and giving him some boosters. And then they went back and said, their family is Air Force. They've been stationed at 4 of the top contaminated Air Force bases during this child's life cycle, and he has MS, and he needs this critical medicine. But it's only going to be effective if they can guarantee he doesn't have chickenpox. So we're also waiting on that $400,000 grant that Dr. Adgate can do in our community. The best case scenario, our kids are fine, but what if they're not? We need to be ready for that. That's some of the main talking points that we could talk about here. There were scientists talking about bio-waste solids being spread on farm fields because there isn't a law saying bio-waste needs to be at 70 parts per trillion. So there is a coalition member leader in Alabama dealing with contamination on their fields because it's the bio-waste coming from New York and New Jersey. So, yeah, it blows my mind of this. It's like a national crisis that isn't getting enough attention.
Yeah. Okay.
So, thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
I just want to clarify one thing. The people, the 1,000 people that they're going to test, they don't need to call you or call the city or call anybody because I understand it's going to be done by a lottery. I think that's what your article said.
No, if you come to the coalition and I'm going to put your name on a list, I can't guarantee anything, but if I've got a list of 300 people, those people will be considered.
Right, but there's no reason to call anybody yet. No.
So you they're going to be here in May through July next year, depending on the other locations as you move.
Right.
From east to west.
Right. But people get all excited when they hear about something like that.
Right.
And keep it on their radar, but not.
Yeah, the ATSDR doesn't know exactly all the parameters of the study yet. They've got a we're not the guinea pigs on it this time. So we're like number 5 on the list, which is good. So as they develop the criteria like we did with our blood testing here, Dr. Adgate had to change some of the parameters because of so many illnesses here in our community. He had to, if you were taking certain medications or if you had diabetes or something, now he had to change it so he could get enough people in his study.
Yeah, and just one last thing. I know you made a comment. You said other communities haven't been as lucky as we are.
Yeah.
And hush up. I'll take my time.
We still have 3 more public comments.
I don't think we're lucky at all.
Right.
I think we have a fantastic group of citizens and a fantastic staff in place that have worked extremely hard, and some council members that have worked extremely hard up here. But I know John got us into the Pentagon. Representative Landgraf got us in the Pentagon. I know your group has been working really hard. We have Curtis and his staff with everything that they've done. And I think we just, and the other surrounding providers, and I think we made a very planned approach to it. And so the word lucky implies it just kind of happened.
No,
we're
fortunate is a better
very
word.
fortunate that we had the people on hand that we needed in the positions at the time.
Right.
So, yeah. So thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you for your work, too.
Right, thanks.
Thank you.
But I do think we're lucky, too, because they could have just said no. They could have just told us no. Yeah. So, okay. Ms. Meininger.
Deborah Stout-Meininger, community advocate, citizen scientist. As far as our Highway 25 money projects going in and out, back and forth, you hear one thing one place, you hear another thing another place. What I do know is in the newspaper, let's see here. Okay. In the newspaper recently, there was a notation that, I just lose my papers, that there were 790 accidents between when the project started on September 1st and 9 months from there. In that 9-month window, they counted 790 accidents. Now, back in the day when Commissioner Mark Waller was pushing it because there was a total of 1,809 accidents between 2011 through 2015. When I did the calculation that there's approximately 1,820 days in those 5 years, that came out to 1 accident per day. The calculation for that 9-month window of 790 accidents, give or take about 10 days or so, is 3 accidents per day. Nobody puts that particular statistics out there, but it was nice of the Gazette to put those numbers down for us. And that was an article that came out, I believe it was in June of this year. Now, talk about using statistics to lie to the people. We have had that overemphasized as being the worst part in El Paso County. And I do know at one point I said that I could name at least 5 other highways that had worse statistics at that time. I don't think they really beat it that much now, considering it's up to 3 accidents per day on the average in that work zone. To me, that's a pretty horrific number for something that's only supposed to be a lane expansion, which we all know it is far more than that. And according to questions that Commissioner Gonzalez asked them in last year's CDOT public meeting at the BOCC, was how much was the additional cameras and electrical equipment and the utilities infrastructure costing at that gap for the toll lane. That was quoted as $13 million. They're asking for $30 million to put in, to update utilities infrastructure on the rest of Highway 25 through through El Paso County, that portion. And there's been multiple reasons put out there for why they're going to do it. Oh, it's going to be lights to put up, cameras and everything to make on-ramps like Denver, blah, blah, blah. A lot of those cameras are the same kind of cameras they use for the toll lanes. When it's completed that there are going to be 3 lanes all the way through southern Pueblo County, that's when we're going to see that toll lane go all the way from the gap down to the south end of Pueblo County. The goal is through the end of the state. The fact is, it's happening. The fact is, it's on the agenda and always has been. And the fact is, the public has not been, CDOT and the county commissioners, unfortunately, the one in charge, Commissioner Mark Waller, have not always been honest with the public. And of course, I found this little book that just reminded me so much of what we're dealing with is How to Lie with Statistics. Found this at the library. I bought it. It's mine. I don't know if I'll be any smarter than elected officials, but I can be just as smart. And of course, nobody can accuse me of being politically correct, because people need the facts, not for me to be nice to people doing something wrong. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Loginos Gonzalez on behalf of VFW 6461. I did want to highlight that we had a very successful annual picnic this past Saturday. We appreciate having the fire department come out with one of their vehicles. So it was great, especially for the youth that were out there to look at that. This Saturday, we do have a Girl Scout working on her Gold Award, which is similar to the Eagle Scout project. She'll be starting doing the groundbreaking at the VFW Saturday morning at 9 a.m. So if anybody would like to volunteer some time to help her out over the next several weeks, I think maybe in a couple of months for her project, that'd be great. Just contact the VFW and they'll let pass your name to her. On August 16th, VFW 3917 will actually be installing the department commander, who is one of their members, and the auxiliary president will be having their homecoming event, and that's at 5 p.m. on the 16th of August. And then lastly, for VFW, they did want to say that they will be participating in the Labor Day Parade Fall Festival. They will have the color guard and a float themselves. As a county commissioner, I did want to add, because PFOA did come up twice today, I did want to say that I did meet today with Senator Bennett's D.C. area military affairs liaison. She's in town for several days to speak to the constituents and Senator Bennett's local representatives. So I spent about an hour with her and the local representative as well. We spent the first 20 minutes or so specifically on PFOS, PFOA, and the efforts of all the elected officials trying to do what they can for the community. So I just want to put that out. Thank you.
Thanks for looking out for us.
Commissioner, I have a question for you with your commissioner hat on. So there's been a couple people online wondering about what's going on, and I know you might not be able to answer the question tonight. You may have to get back to us with the information on the Fountain Creek Regional Park. That is a county park, right? Not a city park?
Correct.
Okay, that's a county park. And I know they had some damage last year after the hailstorm, and I think they had to take some of the toys down and stuff. Like I said, you may not have an update, but I know some people have been kind of wondering why it's taken so long to get that repaired and when that's going to happen. So if anything you can find out on that, because that's a really popular park.
Right, and we did talk about that, and that's something I'm getting with Tim Wilkin, our Parks Director, Community and Planning Department Chief, to see what the latest is on that. There are different areas. Will Springs Ponds, one of the little pathways was also destroyed from the rains and the hail the last several years. We've had a lot of summer storms that have really affected the area, and that's just one of a couple of multiple areas that we're trying to fix. And so I'll get an update and respond back to that one.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Miss Alicia Gamori from the library.
Hello, my name is Alicia Gamori. I'm the manager for the Fountain Library, and we're really excited. We are celebrating 40 years in Fountain this year. Our first branch opened in 1979. So we're going to have a week of special programming, September 2nd through the 7th. We're participating in the Fall Festival Parade for the first time, so we'll have our bookmobile, our book cart drill team. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then, like I said, that during that entire week, we'll have special programming. There's one program in particular that we're super excited about. It's called The Longest Table, and that program is for 100 people. It's an event to build new relationships and talk about the future of our community, share a meal and a conversation with someone that you don't know, exchange stories about life in Fountain, and discover both common ground and new ideas. So that'll be open for 100 community members. We do have open registration on our website, but I wanted to come and formally invite City Council and then also City Manager Scott Traynor. Yeah, I just wanted to come and tell you guys all about that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But let me go ahead and there's one for each of you, and please just RSVP to me.
Okay.
But we're anticipating that it's going to be a really fun program. All right, and that was it. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And actually, Scott and I are going to be speaking.
Yes, and also Mayor Ortega and City Manager Traynor have agreed to do a history program for us on Thursday night. It would be similar to what they do for Citizens Academy, but we really want to celebrate our partnerships, The role we've played with the community, we want to celebrate Fountain and also the history here. So we'll have a special photo exhibit in our community meeting room. So anyone can pop in anytime that month to take a look at that. We're going to have an event that Saturday afternoon before the longest table for families. So we'll have yard games in the parking lot so that families can just come. We're also partnering with a lot of other agencies in the community that will come and have their information as well, so that folks, patrons that use our library can also see what other agencies in the Fountain Valley are doing and how they can utilize those services.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad you cleared that up because I thought we were doing our Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis act. So, yeah.
I
Good.
would love
Okay.
that as well. So if you guys
I don't know
want
if
to
you
do
want to
like
get us
a
going.
little
I don't want to get us
5-minute,
going. So
that would be
okay.
amazing.
No, I'm excited. I think I've been a patron the whole entire time. So,
Awesome.
and I actually got made fun of the last time I went to the library because of my library card and how old it is. And
Oh,
so,
fun.
yeah, they were making fun of me. So, I've never been made fun of because of my age. So it was a different thing. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank
Okay.
you.
That is our public comment for this evening. We're going to go ahead and take a quick 4-minute break before we move in.
Okay. Okay.
What? When? Thursday. Yeah, it should be.
You got 4 of 7.
Cheer for him, Mayor, when you get back. I'm happy to help you.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
He's a short timer. He didn't care.
Any hazing is good as okay.
The issue is I don't have any service in here. Okay.
On this table thing reminds me of when my mom grew up, they would fill up this whole city street.
Sylvia
And used to have like stakes.
We're on the.
Orange.
She's recording. Okay. Here he comes.
Okay, Phil, we're not waiting on you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna go ahead and move on to consent item number, or consent agenda item number 7. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed and considered separately. We have items A, B, C, and D on the docket for tonight. Ms. Thompson
I move to approve the consent agenda unless anybody wants to pull something off.
and Mayor Pro Tem. We have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
Let's try again. 5 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Item 8, old business. 8A, second reading of ordinance number 1736, an ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance 1639 and amending section 13.04.270 connection charge of chapter 13.04 water code of the title 13 public services of the Fountain Municipal Code regarding deferral of fees for qualifying affordable housing. Mr. Trainer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As I mentioned in the last presentation, there was a couple changes we needed to make relative to just the way it was referencing the code, the existing code. So those changes were made, but other than that, no other changes were made.
Okay, any questions? Okay, what would council like to do on second reading?
Move to approve.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Motion to approve ordinance 1736.
Second.
We have a second for Ms. Thompson. Please vote. I'm kind of thrown here for a second.
5 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Moving, item 9, new business. Nothing was moved for consent, so we'll go on to item 9B. Resolution 19-052, a resolution authorizing the police department to enter into an amended contract with Axon to maintain current body-worn camera systems and upgrade to Taser 7 systems. Chief Hebler is not here tonight, but Commander Lewis.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Due to the increasing need to provide our community and police officers with updated and the most effective equipment, Chief Hebler is requesting permission to enter into an updated contract with Exxon Enterprises Incorporated. This updated contract is for 5 years and will include updated Exxon body-worn cameras and a new Taser 7, which includes the ability to carry 2 cartridges. The one that we have now only has the ability to carry 1 cartridge. When deploying the Taser 7 system as a level of force prior to lethal force being utilized. This contract includes all maintenance, full warranty on all the systems. The storage, they will handle all the storage, is included in the contract. Before we were doing that ourselves. And additional training and operational Taser cartridges. And they will train 2 of our members to be master certified. That's a price of $2,500, and they threw that into the package. And current contract is $86,000 with approximately $3,000 spent on cartridges. this contract has unlimited cartridges is included in there in the price. And the current contract will go up this year by $12,000, which wouldn't affect the budget because we have that money, IT has that money in the budget. And then the next year, the contract will go up an additional $12,000, taking it up to $110,000, but that would be for the life of the contract every year for the next 2 to 5 years. And then we're also going to, all PDIT service contracts, accounting will move to the IT department to effectively manage and track each service contract cost of service.
Okay.
That's it, sir. So we're questions.
Questions? Ms. Thompson?
So this might be more of a John question. John, I understand where it's going to be in the budget this year, but the $12,000 for the increase in the budget next year, which is the budget we're working on now, is that in that budget? The additional $12,000, is that in next year's budget?
Yeah, I do not believe it's in there yet. Tomorrow is the first time we're going to start meeting with departments.
Okay.
To find out what has changed from what they projected.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to see that get in there and not have to come back as an addition next year. Okay. And then when you say storage, just I don't understand.
That's like the cloud, you know, where all our
Like
video.
okay, I'm going to ask a dumb question, and for every person that asks this, there's 5 people that go, right? So if you shoot your taser or use your I don't know what the correct terminology is.
No, it's for the camera.
Oh, this is for the body cam, the storage for the body cams. Okay, I thought it was something to do with the tasers because it all kind of came together. I was like, wow, tasers get. Okay, and I assume to become a master taser person, you get tased.
No, you're an instructor, so we don't have to go
sorry,
outside of the organization.
No, he doesn't have to
keep
get tased to be an instructor.
Not this guy.
Might diminish your pool of volunteers, huh? All right. Well, thank you. I just want to make sure we're going to get that in the budget. So, unless anybody has any other questions, I'll make a motion to approve it.
We currently we store the video currently.
Yes.
Okay, and then we're moving to them storing it. It'll be cloud-based and
all in the cloud. Yes.
Okay. And as I understand, the second, now I may be completely wrong. The second the lights go on, the cameras start. Is that correct?
And then
okay.
the camera is an updated camera. It even has gunshot detection. So if the camera detects any type of gunshot, it automatically comes on. It's getting ready to blur when an officer is running. You know, it's reducing the blur that's showing up on the video. And it has more microphones on it, so it's a better camera.
Okay.
And then also with us signing into the contract now, we'll save an additional $10,000.
Okay.
As opposed to waiting until next contract.
Okay.
And not to brag, but I think we were the first city in the state of Colorado
Absolutely.
to have cameras.
Not in the state, but in the county and the region.
Oh, in the county and the region. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it was a big topic when I went to CML that year, and really big. So, and obviously, look where we're at today. I mean, with the whole thing. So, any questions, Mr. Applegate?
I have a question.
Okay. Any other questions? No, she hasn't made no one's made a motion yet.
I said if nobody had any questions, I'd make a motion.
Right. Nobody has made a motion yet. You have to come to the mic.
I'm Fran Carrick. Do we shop this contract, or is it just automatic that we stay with that company for the?
We always take a look at who has the best product and the best prices, and Axon has been really good to us. And they, like I said, they're giving us a $10,000 break on signing a new contract early.
How many companies are out there?
Ma'am, that I do not know. I would have to talk to the IT. But
But with this type of technology,
yeah,
this technology takes it kind of out of the person and puts it in the technology hands, so it's the best technology.
it is.
And if I may, as speaking as and I said this a couple years ago, that Axon is the leading technology for this, and I know that because I used to be a defense attorney, and I used to try to poke holes in the technology, and Axon is the hardest to poke holes in, and so it's the most reliable, and in my experience, it's the most reliable, and it's the hardest for the officers to tamper with. So you can't access the videos, you can't change it. You know, if the lights go on, if you know, there's certain things that trigger the video, and there's no way for the officers to control a lot of that, right? If the officer goes horizontal, it turns on, right? So there's a lot of things that other companies, their technology is not up to the standards. So, and we did, as far as I know, talking with Chief Eber, we did shop it around, and it is a reasonable price, because the reality is all the police departments talk to each other about the prices, and so they did compare the price for similar products, and this was a reasonably priced given the discount. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, with that, council, Ms. Thompson
Move to approve.
and Mr. Applegate.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval. Please vote.
5 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Item 9C, resolution number 19-048, a resolution submitting to the registered qualified electors of the city of Fountain, Colorado at the general coordinated election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2019, the question of the imposition of a sales tax increase for transportation funding to fund capital improvements to city streets and authorizing the exemption of revenues collected from the sales tax increase in earnings thereon from revenue and spending limits of Article 10, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution, setting the title and content of the ballot for the election. And we have Mr. Johnson and Ms. Herzberg are coming forward to speak. And if you can, also introduce your counterparts who are also working tirelessly on this endeavor.
With pleasure. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing our focus group's thoughts on this issue. And so I'm Jennifer Herzberg, Chair of the focus group. We have Brian Johnson present tonight. Then also we have Kim Lippincott, we have Daryl Couch, and we have Suzanne Foster with us tonight. And Mr. Applegate is also on our focus group. So, so my role here, which tonight, we have my slides, great. I realize that the council is very much aware of who the focus group is and what we do, but I thought for the benefit of those here tonight and those that will be listening online, I'd do a very brief overview of what we are, and then I'll be passing it on to Brian to get into more of the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about. So the roadway focus group, oh, sorry, I have to advance it, okay. There you go. The Roadway Focus Group is a citizen-led group that was established in August of 2017, intended to provide the Streets Department with a citizen's perspective on roadway issues, maintenance priorities, and to increase community awareness about streets projects. I think it's important to also point out what we're not. The focus group is not a decision-making authority. We're not a board or commission, and we were not appointed by City Council. The group simply exists to discuss issues related to our streets, to increase community awareness, and to offer recommendations for improvement. And here is a list of our focus group members, followed by the zones that we represent, 2 from each zone. And if you're unsure about which zone you live in, you can go to the city website. This presentation will also be on the city website under Moving Fountain Forward, and then just take the link to Roadway Focus Group. And you also have an email address there for you and the list of city staff that's so kind to help us when we have questions and need help. I wanted to give a brief idea of the things we've been talking about since inception. It's a pretty long list, but I'm not going to read it all. We talked about collateral duties for the Streets Department. We've talked about staffing, maintenance budget, addressing damages by the county landfill trucks. We talked about developers, asking them to contribute more to our roadway infrastructure, and the impact of the Moving Fountain Forward Transportation Sales Tax, which sunsets this year. In 2018, we created the 3 zones, and we increased our group by 2, so that we had 2 representatives from each of the 3 zones, so that we have equal representation across the whole city. We've provided input into streets resurfacing priorities. We try to keep up to date on the current Moving Fountain Forward capital improvement projects. And we've worked with the city engagement manager on strategies to increase community education and engagement. We've hosted community meetings and participated in community events. And we've also increased our visibility and participation in digital channels. Our targets for 2019 is to continue to increase web content, which would include brief informational videos about streets. Continue to provide input for streets resurfacing projects and priorities. To continue to host community meetings and put out surveys. Assist in community engagement and education regarding moving Fountain forward. And assist in community education and engagement regarding the single hauler concept. Next up is someone who doesn't really need a introduction. Brian Johnson's been a valuable member to the Roadway Focus Group. He's been able to share his extensive history with the city and the city streets, especially about the origins of moving Fountain forward. So I'm going to hand it over to Brian.
Thank you, Jennifer. Brian Johnson, Roadway Focus Group. So I think it's important when we're talking about potential ballot question to give a little bit of background to how we got to here today. So I'm going to go through that. I'm going to talk a little bit about moving forward and touch on one other subject. So you saw some of the briefings earlier. This is not a new topic. This is something that a lot of communities around the country are struggling with, particularly in Fountain. In 2003, 2004 timeframe, the city was approached about joining the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority. The city council at that time decided not to participate. My understanding is that was based on a belief that the amount of money the citizens of Fountain would pay into PPRTA would not be equivalent to the amount of money coming back in projects and maintenance. And just a real quick look at the 2018 PPRTA budget, it indicates about 70% of the maintenance funds go to Colorado Springs. 28% go to the county. The remaining 3%, these are all approximates, go to the participating cities. Manitou, in that remaining group, Manitou was the largest beneficiary of that 3%, and they got $30,000 annually for street maintenance. Just important to note, too, that PPRTA is set up three pieces: transit, capital projects, and maintenance. So 2004 timeframe, after that decision was made, after that, I was actually on city council at that point, we saw increased costs from Mountain Metro for transit bus service to the city of Fountain. It grew exponentially every year to the point that it wasn't sustainable in our budget. The reason that they didn't really creep up in other communities is because if they were part of PPRTA, PPRTA paid that bill, but Fountain wasn't part, therefore we got a bill. Shortly after that, too, was about the time that the quiet zones at Main Street and Fontaine were improved and approved for quiet zones. And that became a regular request to the city, getting quiet zones in the city of Fountain. Over the course of many years, there were a lot of projects that were good ideas, let's say, that came up to address traffic problems within the city of Fountain. So there was a laundry list of things that could be done to improve intersections and that kind of thing, better circulation. And lastly, there was a recognition that there was just insufficient funds dedicated to street maintenance. I believe when I was on council, we were around 88 miles of roads in the city, and I believe at the time, I think the projection would be it would take 200 years to go and repave all those streets. So, with all those things in mind, Moving Fountain Forward was born. It was born to distinctly and legally separate funding for those same three things that PPRTA does. So it was really modeled after PPRTA. Fund a city-managed and run transit service, fund approximately, well, it's actually 10 capital projects. Some of those are a little bit broader than just a single project. And then add funds to street maintenance. Moving Fountain Forward was passed by the voters in 2009. It's a pay-as-you-go kind of thing for capital projects and for maintenance. So you have to accumulate the money before you can spend it. There was no bonding allowed. So each year, the city would take the available maintenance funds, look at the projects that needed to be done, the streets need to be overlaid or repaired, and accomplish that. And there's a list available. Go down a slide, Sylvia. Maybe it's up. I'm not sure which direction. Here's the list of projects. I don't want to dive into that, but there is projects that each year, the associated costs. Doesn't include this year. This is not a complete up-to-date list, but it's out there. the capital projects that were proposed and put in the ballot question. Those projects, or actually I should say the capital projects that were low cost, such as ADA ramp improvements and traffic calming improvements to certain streets, those were done initially because those were low cost. It didn't take a lot of funds to accrue to do those things. But the more expensive ones, we had to wait a much longer time to get enough revenue to be able to fund those projects. Well, the problem is the longer you wait on a project, the more it costs. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. We just always playing catch up. To compound things further, in 2015, the voters in Colorado Springs approved a sales tax increase to repair their streets and roads. Almost immediately, the cost for the materials and the available pool of the contractors willing to bid on work in Fountain, the cost went up, and the number of contractors willing to bid on projects down here that were really small in scale compared to Colorado Springs went down. So our costs increased additionally. Quiet zones, that's a frequent topic. So some of the quiet zone improvements started in the first couple years. Putting medians in on Ohio, I believe, was one of the first ones. Fast forward a few years, the city finds out that really to get a quiet zone approved, they have to be a package deal. You can't do one crossing at a time. So again, you have to wait for the funds to accumulate to do these kinds of things. And it takes time, and the costs increase. The requirements for those crossings from the Colorado Public Utilities Commission and the railroads changed during that 8+ years. So again, you're always chasing the cost that you estimated originally that was never enough, and you're always, we've got to wait another year before we have enough money. Well, now it costs more, so now you have to wait longer. And I'll just say, and we touched on this a little bit before with the sidewalk along Link Road. Anything that involves the railroads adds a lot of complexity and adds a lot of costs. So the capital projects that involve anything to do with the railroads, it's going to cost a lot of money. The capital portion of moving Fountain forward, as Jennifer alluded to, that actually expires at the end of this year. And a lot of the 10 projects, not all of them are going to be finished because we just don't have enough money to pay for all those. Most of the maintenance and resurfacing monies that have been applied in the last 8-9 years have gone towards major thoroughfares. They haven't gone into the neighborhoods. And some of our neighborhoods, streets are going to require a more thorough repair, and some of them are going to require a complete rebuild, which is very costly. And that's the concern, that if we don't try to start addressing some of the streets that we can still repair on a little bit cheaper means, they're all going to cost a lot more in the long run. There's an estimate of a backlog of street work in the city of almost $53 million. There continues to be insufficient funding in the street maintenance budget and from moving Fountain forward overlay or maintenance revenues to address anything real significant. Some of the pictures you saw earlier of some of the neighborhoods, those are going to be really expensive repairs, and there's just not an efficient way to even try to tackle. You might be able to do a couple blocks here and there, but when the whole neighborhoods need to be rebuilt, we're just not going to get there. The city, as Todd talked about earlier, the city's been very aggressive in seeking other funding sources. Very, very significant amounts of grant money is available that we have been awarded. However, it requires matching funds from the city too. And that's money, again, that we do not have. The development process, we're asking the developers to step forward and do things off-site. Speaking from 6 years of planning commission and 4 years on city council, that only happened in the rarest instances before. That was something that only when there was an extreme compelling need that we got the development community on board with that. The rest of the time they were mainly traffic studies and everything looked great. The roadway focus group is advocating that this ballot question be approved, and we want to put it in the hands of the citizens and let them make the decision. That's their choice. I'll also say that if this does pass, this isn't going to address the $53 million. Even if it generates a projected, like say, $2 million a year for 10 years, that's only $20 million. And it's we've got a long ways to go, but it will make a significant difference in the projects that we can do. The future city councils, and this is for some of you that will be here in future years, we really need to get aggressive with budgeting and looking at when additional revenues are available, trying to close that gap even more. And I'll echo something that Dean Chimino said earlier. I think the use tax gap is something really worth looking into. Again, it's a tax, so it would have to go to the ballot to be approved by the voters. But two things. One, it is, in my opinion, it puts local businesses at a disadvantage if they're having to charge sales tax to a resident and a resident can leave town and buy something cheaper. So I think that's something really worth pursuing. And the other thing is, you really question, is there a means to close the gap in any other way? Certainly there's other pots of money available, but if we're doing our citizens a disservice and we're continuing to leak tax dollars outside of Fountain, I think that's something we can look at. And I'll just make a quick comment on a subject that comes up many times when we're talking streets and roads. There's really two areas we're talking about: maintaining what we have, and then trying to make improvements, to carry more traffic, improve traffic flow. And that area is growth. So growth is it's a double-edged sword. You get benefits from it, but there's also drawbacks. It's true that growth in our community has strained our transportation infrastructure, but we've also got benefits from growth. And most of that strain is on thoroughfares. So putting my hat on, former planning commissioner, former city council member, two options. You could become restrictive to slow down growth or stop it in the city, or you can be proactive to guide smart growth. I think it's a fact that we live with that there's going to be development. We live on the Front Range in Colorado. There's a lot of people that want to move here, right or wrong. And there's a lot of development outside of the city limits. There's a lot of development in the county, and I'll just point to Lorson Ranch and the Glen Widefield as two areas that are urban type growth that are outside the city limits. So, if you ratchet back, you try to tighten down growth in the city, most of the time what's going to happen is you're going to have that development go outside the city limits, and you're going to end up with the same impacts, and the city will have little say and probably no revenue from that. So that's just my hat. I'll take that off now. To close this out, this is just a ballot proposal. This isn't deciding we're going to raise taxes. This lets the citizens decide it. I think that's where it belongs. If they're happy with the roads the way they are and look at the future and are comfortable with the amount of maintenance that the city can do based on the funding we have, and potentially maybe some more, but really can't fix the big problems. If they're happy with that, then that's the decision we'll have to accept. So I thank you for your time. That's all I have. I think, Troy, are you speaking? Okay.
Mayor, Council, I just wanted to quickly talk about the language. At the direction of the council, I worked with the roadway focus group and city staff to come up with the exact language to propose to the council tonight, making sure, especially focused on the Tabor rules, Tabor restrictions. Thanks to Doug Bruce, we have some certain requirements that have to be put into the language of the ballot measure, and so really with Ms. Huffman and I working through what had to be required on there, and that's in there. So talking about specifically what's in there is, so take a look, this is Moving Fountain 4 from 2009. The citizens approved a tax increase of 70 cents per dollar. Can you move on a couple, Chris? You can just move to the end of that slide. Yeah, perfect. And it was, like Brian said, 3 sections of that 0.75. The capital improvements section, that 0.35, is the section that will sunset at the end of this year. The public transportation and streets resurfacing will continue. And so the ballot question proposed to council tonight is regarding capital improvements. And so the language in the question is increasing the capital improvements section only to 0.70 cents per dollar. And so that's what's proposed to move forward, and I'll entertain any questions, and then I'm sure the group is available to entertain questions as well.
On your taxes,
I'll need you up here,
I
just so we can get it recorded.
Dean Chimino, just a quick calculation, is that 75 cents per dollar or 7.5 cents per
That's
dollar?
0.75 cents per dollar.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
It looks like it's 75 cents a dollar, and it's like, holy crap.
No. No, 0.7 cents, not $0.75. So, so it would be,
0.075.
well, no, if it was in dollars, there's a cent sign.
Right.
So it's 0.75 of every penny.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, but okay.
Okay. So if it was a dollar sign, it would be 0.0075.
Okay. Just clarifying that.
Okay.
Okay, so, Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
No, when they're done, I just had a comment to make moving forward.
Okay, let's, any questions, let's entertain questions from the council. Okay, any questions from public? Oh, yeah, hold on.
We don't have it for the projector, but I mean, it's in the proposed resolution in the agenda, so.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rick.
Gordon Rick. Two things for council. First, I checked with Christy Martinez in the planning department. This city has not approved any new residential development since 2010. Okay, that's been 9 years. So we're just we've been dealing with all the developments that were approved prior to 2010. So we've already slowed development. Secondly, as a general rule, I don't like tax increases. I don't like to do them. But I know several members on the roadway focus group. I've worked with Jennifer Herzberg on the Planning Commission. I know Darrell Couch and Ken Lippincott. They don't impress me as the type of people that are going to recommend a tax increase for some willy-nilly reason that we really don't need. These are responsible citizens, and I support their request.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, focus group, you guys are good? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I can't think of a better focus committee to have. I mean, Jennifer, Ken, Susan, Richard, Darrell, Todd, your group's participation. I mean, I think it's phenomenal, the representation we have coming across the board. And Brian, you as well, I'm sorry. You know, we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to stay behind the 8 ball, or are we willing to move forward in the future? You know, lately there's been a lot of discussion from CDOT. We look at the I-25 project. Colorado as a whole has been behind the ball when it comes to infrastructure. There are a lot of mistakes that were made in the past. I think when we look at heritage in particular, and I'm gonna bring up heritage because that is my ward, and you look at the deterioration of those streets, I mean, it's horrendous. And, you know, Band-Aids aren't working anymore. And so it's the type of thing that we're gonna have to pay now, or we're gonna have to pay later. I can say that our planning department our new superintendent for the streets, Bob McDonald, has done a phenomenal job as far as making repairs. As soon as he hit the ground, you didn't hear about progress. We could actually see it, and we continue to see it this day. And I think that's really phenomenal considering what these guys are working with financially. I think for me, it's imperative that we seriously look at your recommendation because it goes back to us moving forward in the future. I do know that the planning department is holding developers at a higher standard, and in my opinion, the highest standard that this city has ever held developers in the past. We're holding them accountable. And not only that, that's part of the reason that we have the deterioration in a lot of the communities that we have today, because there was really no accountability. And let's just be honest and let's call it what it is and what it was. It's unfortunate that a lot of communities are suffering because of the lackadaisical attitude that certain groups, entities, developers, individuals had when it came to doing their job. And it goes back to, if you're going to do something right, do it right or don't do it at all. And so a lot of mistakes have been made, but the thing is that we're moving forward, and we need to put ourselves in a position that we can have growth that benefits us as a whole. And so that's my thought on it. I'm in support of this measure.
Okay. Anyone else? You want to go ahead? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was contacted in the last couple of weeks in regards to this particular issue, and was told that a number of people don't believe that we're honest enough as a council to run this and do this like this, which didn't make me feel real good. My feeling is we have to do something, and the bottom line, the people get to vote on it. And it's like I told the person that I spoke to most recently, she's not going to know how I vote in the voting booth, and I'm not going to know how she votes. But I do think that this is something we have to do as a group. And I talked to Brian about this. I've talked to a couple of people in the focus group about it. And then there was one of the concerns was, well, who decided this focus group? Well, I'm kind of like with Phil. The 6 people that are on that focus group have a lot in common with each other, as well as a lot of things that the city's been proud to have. So to me, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
By the way, one other thing.
Yeah.
I rode with Todd last week to a number of the areas in town, and I'm one of those people that I find an easy way to go, and I go that way, and I don't go any other way. And if you go check all the other neighborhoods out, you'll find that your neighborhood might not be quite as bad as you think it is, as far as your roads are concerned. That's all right.
The only comment in regards to what Mayor Pro Tem said about previous development, I wouldn't really consider a lackadaisical on the last or previous commissions and councils. It's and I tell this to a lot of people, and it's my opinion, and you can agree with it or not, but growth came really fast to the city, and we just weren't prepared for it. And I don't think that was anybody's fault. It's, we're part of the Front Range, as Brian said, and it was going to come whether we wanted it or not. And I can tell you the majority of the people back then didn't want it to come. And, I remember a lot of people just saying, please don't come. But it just, the reality was that wasn't going to happen. And we had a small city and a small staff. The staff that we had was, what they were working with and what they knew and what they brought to the table wasn't what the city was bringing. And I'm talking about our city, but just a city is bringing and what we were turning into. And so, I think they did the best that they could with the resources they had. And I think on top of that, the builders, the developers are the ones that really took advantage of that system. They came in and they kind of just ran rammed a bunch of stuff down onto us. And you know, again, we didn't have the wherewithal at the time because we just weren't that type of city. We weren't intended to be a growing metropolis of where we're at now, and you know, and so I think they really took advantage of that, and we're suffering today because of that, because of, you know, and I think of your neighborhood, Phil, where you guys were taken advantage of, and you've been dealing with some big issues, and Heritage is another one, and you know, I think of area just north of CNS where you drive those roads and they passed the standards back then, but until we created rules and policies and procedures that really put the onus back on those developers, and it was much to the chagrin of the developers. And you know, prior to a couple of councils, you know, a lot of them were really supported by the HBA, and they paid for a lot of campaigns. And to this day, I don't know that anybody up here has been supported by the HBA because of the strong stances that we've taken. At the mayor's panel I did 2 weeks ago, I was taken to task by a developer because we're difficult to work with in Fountain, and I saw the counter where I'm like, no, we're holding you accountable, because when the growth started, the big concern by the citizens was, we want, if growth is going to happen, we want it to be smart, we want growth to pay its way, and so that's what we demanded from the developers, and you know, they cry and complain because we've got all these rules and procedures in place, but there's a reason for that, and it's to protect the citizenry and what we have here in town, and well, I think I know for myself, I'm going to continue to push that button with them, and you know, well, they can just go to the county, and I think the county's slowly beginning to figure out that they're beginning to take advantage as well. I know Colorado Springs, in a recent article that Sharon shared with us, the Springs has kind of figured that out as well, and a couple of the council members starting to ask the questions, well, how come we're letting them get away with some of the things that they're getting away with, and if you know, I think this is probably the best way to get those communities like Lorson, which was kind of ramshot into there, and we deal with the after effects when there's a big rainstorm. They didn't control their water, and we're getting hit and hammered pretty hard by it. So we have to do things that are the only thing we can do to protect our citizenry, and the sales tax is a good way to do it. Not the best way, but it's a good way because we can still tax those people because they're coming to our stores, they're coming to our restaurants, and they're paying those taxes even though they don't live here. So, you know, a lot of history there, and thanks, Brian, for bringing all that up. But I think really, you know, growth is happening, and whether we like it or not, it's going to continue to grow too. And even though we haven't approved a new development, they're coming. They are coming, and there's developments that have been platted for years, and they've just been sitting on them. And so I think those are going to start coming on board online too. And you know, criticisms are going to be made then as to why did this happen, or why are you letting this happen? It's already happened, and so the councils at the time that these things come up, they're going to have to do the best they can, and then to push the issue and push the buttons that we need to push based on things that have happened for years in the past. So a lot of stuff, a lot of intricacies that we're dealing with, and I commend the staff today that it's a tough road to hoe to get to where we are today. But I hate taxes too. I don't like it, but you know, I'm also in favor of this, but I'm at least putting it on the ballot and see what happens. So, anybody else?
Did Richard want to say something before I go?
Well, I'm kind of on the roadway focus.
Right. I think he said it. Thanks.
Richard says, you know where I stand. I put all the time on the roadway focus group. I don't know if you guys heard that or not. So I actually asked Sylvia to pull for me some documentation from the 2009 meeting when this was actually done by the previous councils, because I can't even trust my memory to know what I did yesterday, let alone what we were all doing 9 or 10 years ago. And so I thought it was interesting, and so I had her pull the resolution and find out the vote for it and who nominated it and everything. And then I actually had her pull the audio for me. And so I actually spent some time listening through the audio. And if you think tonight's meeting is long, every meeting was long back then. So we're only having them once in a while. And Scott, don't give me that look. Anyway, so it was very, very interesting to listen through that. And they formed something very similar to the citizens focus group. They called it the Transportation Funding Subcommittee. And didn't mention in the meeting who was on it, so I really don't know. And they actually had a couple of different transportation taxes that they were discussing. And it came down to the difference of 1/10 of a penny. And some of the people actually wanted to go with the higher tax back then to get more roads done so that we could get it done. But they ended up going with the lower, the one we landed on here. And so they could get it started. The bus service was on there, of course, to get it started. And I think that was very, very important for our community to have that, because we do have a lot of people that depend on the bus to get to shopping and doctor's appointments and things like that. So that's very interesting. And there was different people trying to figure it out. They were going with the 0.75 or the 0.85, and if they'd gone with the 0.85, we could have gotten a lot done, but they decided to not change it the last minute on the citizens. And interesting enough, Ken Lippincott stood up at that meeting 10 years ago and had some comments about, that the projects need to be done, and he was very interested, of course, in the calming things. And then Mayor Howells made a comment and a couple of times in the meeting, and she said, hopefully we can keep refunding this to keep big projects going. So I think back at that time, even 10 years ago, their thought was they knew they were going to have to come back to the citizens to vote for it, but that hopefully that could keep going. And then a citizen came up that didn't identify himself at first, and I kept saying, I know that voice. That's Richard Applegate was at the meeting. Citizen Richard Applegate actually spoke up with some questions, and he actually said at the time that he did not think that that was going to cover enough of the road surfacings that we needed to get done, and he actually wanted to see more money y'all got to be careful, it does come back. And he actually was very thinking far ahead on that he thought that we weren't going to have enough dollars to get a lot of the projects done. And then Mayor Howe stated again that she was hoping that it could be renewed in 10 years. So the ballot measure was passed by Councilmember Louis Porcia, agreed with it, and he said that he really wanted the higher one, but some percentage was better than none. So he made the motion to pass it. It was seconded by Sharon Brown, and it was passed by a 6-1. So I called up the one member who had voted no on the ballot measure and asked Representative Landgraf, who was Councilmember Landgraf at the time, if she could think back 10 years ago why she could have potentially voted no on this. And she said to the best of her recollection, because it was 10 years ago, she thought she had voted no because she supported the issue and knew it was very important, but she wanted to see it be bonded so that the projects could have been done quicker rather than saving up. And so she said, don't hold me to it, but that's the best of what she had remembered, and that's pretty much what I've heard through the grapevine throughout the years. So that's kind of a little history about where we are now, and so that was really kind of interesting to listen to and hear some of those voices from the past. And so people say, why were certain people interested in the roadway focus group? And I think we have two here that have been working on it for more than 10 years, it sounds like, that they were interested in it from even 10 years ago when that was being passed. That said, I am going to be totally honest with everyone here and with our staff that I'm understanding that this is a save-up tax again. And we've talked for a year or two that this was going to be a bonded tax so that we could get the projects done, because the asphalt and cement and everything has just, as you explained earlier and everybody's explaining, astronomically gone through the roof in the last few years. And so to see this change come through, that it's going to be a save-up tax and not a bonding tax, I have some serious concerns about it, because right now, with a good economy, is a good time to sell bonds. To buy a bond. People want to purchase bonds. Would you say that would be correct, John? So if you're not bonding something, and when it's a good time to buy, for the people interested in buying bonds, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Just to address that real quick, one of the things the group did was they took the survey. They've done two surveys, one last fall in November and the other one just a few months ago. And they kind of took all those survey results together, and actually it was a higher 1.0, which everyone said that they would support, then 0.70 was next. But one thing that we had to sit down as a staff, we had to sit down and say, what are our internal capabilities with the resources we currently have? And we had to be realistic and honest with ourselves. So we put language in initially to do a bonding, which then you have to meet all kinds of Tabor requirements to put that language in there. So it was a very healthy discussion back and forth over if that would preclude some citizens from voting for this. Because even when this passed in 2009, it was very close. If you look back at those numbers, it was very close, came down to some individual neighborhoods, and we also looked at those. So the balance was, do we want, because if we put the bonding language in there, it starts off with what the debt would be, which is very high, which just the language itself, because it's written by the individuals written, Sylvia explained that it was written so that some people would read that Tabor language and not pass it. So we had to take all of that and balance it. But when we sit down with our current streets department and we look at the resources we have, even if we were able to bond these and get, let's say, $10 million in year one, because of our limited resources, that includes Brandy's group. Brandy had some pretty stressful time after she found out we were going for bonding language. As she said, wait a minute, engineering can only handle so much. And it goes back to what the mayor said. We haven't increased our staffs that much since back in the day. So we said, could we effectively do all of the quality control if we got those projects to get them done in 2 or 3 years? And realistically, with the resources we have, we couldn't. That would take us having to expand our resources dramatically, which then, again, that money wouldn't come out of here, but it would negatively impact the general fund. So we felt, both internally and externally, the monies that would come in, as you see up there, that are estimated, that John put together, that is something that we could handle with our current resources, because we couldn't expect that you would make the decision of, let's say, doubling resources to handle that. So it's all a balance. Mayor said there's a lot of different pieces to this. So even if we got 10 million as a staff, we couldn't do that because of our current resources. At 2.6, it will stretch a little bit of what we have, as you see Brandy nodding, for those of you that can't see her. But we know we can keep up with that, finish the prior moving fountain forward. I think we can get those done in the initial first 2 years, then move forward on all the other things that would be determined by the citizens and the groups. But if it came in at 10 million, it would take us multiple years because we don't have the staffs anyways. So this was kind of the balance of that.
I understand all that, but I just, when we, to change it at the last minute was just kind of really, really surprising.
We need a lot
And John, is there any time limit if you bond something and you get the money? What's the time limit that you can spend that money on? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
If you take out a bond, let's say for 10 million, generally speaking, you're supposed to use those proceeds within a 2-year period.
Okay, it's just good information for people to have out. And so I'm not saying I don't support this. I'm just saying I was with the price increases that we had the last time, and the problem wasn't having to save up everything for it, and that it, doubled the cost of the projects almost in some of these. That it's a huge concern to me that I think we were in a meeting earlier today, and you said something about the price of what concrete or asphalt is going up every year.
Yes, they expect the construction costs are going to continue to go up for about 4 or 5% for the next 3 to 4 years.
4 or 5% each year. Okay, and we figured all those costs into these projects.
Right now, we don't have any specific other than finishing the moving fountain forward.
Okay.
And then we'll utilize and take them and work on the neighborhoods first and main thoroughfares second.
So we're not listing any major projects in this, because you only have to do that if it's a... Okay.
And we don't want to get in the same boat we did last time. So
Okay.
we promise them.
All right, thank you.
I wanted to add one more thing to that, Sharon. Sharon, there's still tools that we can use to do smaller financings. We won't be able to do the full-size bonding, but if they had a project that was 3 or 4 million, they had a small financing, there's still certificates of participation we can use. We can't, when we evaluated that, we don't have the capacity with our assets to finance through a COP the same amount that you would through a bond. But it's still a financing tool that you can use for smaller than the $10 million projects.
So that's still available for us.
I think that's really, really important to get that information out there. Thank you. All right.
Okay, I see hands all of a sudden, so, Ms. Meininger, and I'm going to ask that we keep them pretty brief because we still have some other things to get moving through.
Yes, very quickly. It's kind of confusing. In the previous screens, it was a total of 75.75.
That was the old ballot language.
That was the old ballot
From 10
with
years
the
ago.
.25 and the .10. Okay? Now, we're trying to figure this out because we keep looking at it and it's saying, well, .35 is expiring and we're going to increase it by .35, which means we're increasing it .70 in addition to the .25 and the .10 because it gets a little confusing between the two screens. You're talking .75 total on the other one and .35 does not add up to the other ones as .75. What part didn't fall off?
The transportation part.
And the resurfacing.
And the resurfacing do
.25
not fall
and
off.
the .15 continue.
.15. I
Yes.
thought it said .10.
No.
No, it was
So-
.15.
so-
Okay, so those two are both still in place.
Yes.
Yeah, and the original ballot language in '09 was written that way, that those
So the
continued.
.35, the original .35 will continue, in this request, will continue along with an additional .35. So that'll make the grand total.
Yeah, you're adding .35 to .75, so you're getting 1.10.
Thank you. All right, that was the part that was not clear. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Lippincott.
Last week I was
Name for the
book
record.
signings in.
Name for the record.
Oh, Ken Lippincott.
Thank you.
I was doing book signings in Sedona, Arizona. I went to Flagstaff to line up Barnes & Noble there. And I noticing their streets, I've become more cognizant of that. And I went to the Habit Burger for lunch, and I looked at my receipt on my hamburger. Sales tax, 11.1 cents. And I looked around at their streets and I thought, gosh, I'm glad that, I don't know, it might have been Brian or someone talked me into working for 2A in 2009 because I resisted any kind of tax increase. And I didn't trust that we would realize any benefit in my subdivision, Country Club Heights. And I thought that was important, and it told me the picture of what else was involved, and now I see, and I go over the quiet zones at the railroad tracks, and I look at Duckwood and the extension of CNS, and I visualize what it's going to be when it finally finishes. And then I took a ride down Fountain Mesa to CNS Road, and I didn't have to stop and wait for 10 minutes to get through. The traffic light allows the ease and flow. And then I looked at my subdivision that Sam is the council member for. Our little park is well used. It is paved. It has car markers where you park. And for the 2A money, we got $13,000 to do traffic calming devices. And I went out and checked them out, and they work. And now, Medicine Bow is paved. It is the main artery through my subdivision. All of us see it. It is tangible effort that the city of Fountain does things in my subdivision. And I'm proud. I'm proud to drive those streets. I'm proud to see the park where Duckwood ends up in. And I'm thinking 11.1 in Flagstaff. And we're looking at a modest increase, and I know and I trust that good things are going to be done with it, that we will have tangible evidence that our town is getting better and improving. And I believe it. I believe the difference between this council and what we fought with previously. And there's no fighting. And I'm proud of you folks too. It's been 10 years. Good things have happened, and more good things are happening, and we will be riding on. I have a clunker that has a lifetime warranty, 1,000,000 miles, and I'm going to be driving it on Fountain Streets, and it is good. So keep it up.
Thank you, Mr. Lippincott.
Gordon Rick, as the mayor said earlier, when development came, we weren't ready for it. We weren't staffed. One of the biggest problems we've had with streets in our neighborhood is asphalt was just put down and we didn't have anybody to inspect it, nobody to do a quality check, and we just blankly, somebody just signed the paperwork saying, yeah, it's good, we take it. And now we're dealing with the consequences. If staff says we don't have the quality control for a project, I don't think we should bond it. I understand your arguments, but I've just got too many bad memories of streets being put in with no quality, and I don't want to make the same mistake again. Thank you.
I'm Fran Carrick. Hate to bring this up, but I'm just wondering, how do y'all think this is going to affect the swimming pool?
It's a great question, and something I've been thinking about, because there's a lot of people from the citizenry that are working on that as well. It's going to affect it. I don't know what way it's going to affect it. We also will be competing. And I think Commissioner Gonzalez is gone by now, but I think the county's looking at doing some kind of transportation tax soon. And I know, or I don't know for sure, but I've heard maybe Colorado Springs may be asking for something again. So it's just, I think this is just going to be, I don't know. It's going to affect it.
I think so too.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, I think the bigger question is what's important to us. And I hear a lot of people, well, roads are important to me. Well, I hear a lot of people saying recreation's important to me. And I hear a lot of people saying, well, this is important to me. And it's really, where are you willing to put your money? And, and do that. And if it's a kind of community you want, and you, are you willing to then put up for it? So I don't know. And here in Fountain, it's always been a tough sell, regardless of what it is. It's always been a tough sell to pass a tax. And so I don't know. We'll see. Good question. Okay.
I think it's important to differentiate, though, because this is a sales tax, correct? This is a sales tax. And from what I've heard, because I'm not on the Recreation Task Force, who in the room is on the, okay. What I've heard from the Recreation Task Force is they're discussing more of a mill levy, which is, and I think that's important for citizens to differentiate between the two, because the mill levy is on your property tax. And so the property tax is, from what I'm understanding, that we're looking at going to be, I know we can't make any exact numbers because we don't have them yet, but we're guessing about a range.
Well, I mean,
I just think it's important that people differentiate.
but for people, that's not a distinction. It's still a tax. A tax is a
It
tax.
It is a tax. It is a tax,
And
yeah.
so if you call it a sales tax or a mill levy, it's still, you're
Well,
still
the
asking
important
people to
difference
pay
between,
more, so.
in my mind, between the two is a sales tax is you hopefully are having people come from outside of your community to purchase items within your community, like at Sam's Club and Walmart. So they're driving on those roads and they're helping to pay for those roads. Where the mill levy is for the swimming pool and, for people within the Fountain Valley. So we'll see. But,
But if I'm affected by
I understand
both,
it's just a tax.
still a tax,
I
so.
understand. I get it's just a tax. But as I've learned in PPACG, we got to talk about what they call the colors of money all the time and what can pay for what and what it can be used for, and that's very, very important. So
and yeah, we're
we
getting off the
can't
subject.
take this
so.
money and pay for the swimming pool with it. And I don't want people to confuse the two issues in their mind. This is for transportation. We can't.
You're
use it for
exactly
the
right,
pool.
but the issue is it's money out of my pocket.
I understand that.
So,
I get it.
And that's the conversation we need to keep at the forefront. So, okay, any other questions, comments on this?
So,
Okay.
so just to make it clear, we are not voting this tax through tonight. We are only voting to put it on the
We're
ballot.
only voting for the citizens to make the decision
Right.
in November. So, if you feel passionately either way, you just need to vote, and hopefully people vote your way. So with that, council, let's go ahead and make a decision. Mr. Geek.
Make a motion to approve resolution 19048.
And Mayor Pro Tem.
I make a motion to approve as well, and I will be voting yes
Are
one
you,
time.
so are you going to second?
Second.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and second for approval.
Geek got me excited over here.
Please
I'm
vote.
sorry.
5 yes, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. Item 9D, I kind of planned with Scott from earlier about because I saw that the agenda was going to be pretty long and I just kind of assumed things were going to happen. But we're going to go ahead and table 9D, the mid-year strategic plan update. I think we're going to push it to the next meeting, is that correct? Is council okay with doing that? Yes. Do we need to make a formal, since it was just a presentation anyway, do we need to make anything formal?
No.
No, okay, so that one will be tabled if you're here for that. I'm sorry you had to wait that long, but we will talk about that in the next meeting. We'll move on to item number 10, correspondence, comments, and extra official reports. I'll start with City Manager, Deputy City Manager.
Mayor, we have an available date on Monday, and we need to sit down as a council, invite the public and have a work session on our ongoing code and zoning updates.
Okay.
And that is what we've got for a date that works with our consultant. And I'd like to propose that tonight, as Sylvia would need an answer on that to be able to meet next Monday, the 19th, for a work session.
Monday, the 19th at 6?
6 p.m.
Zoning work session.
Yes, sir.
So they'll be presenting?
Yes, the consultant and Anna Christie will be presenting.
Okay, here.
Here.
Okay.
Right.
And we need to take a motion on that, so.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to set the zoning workshop for Monday, the 19th at 6 o'clock. Please vote.
Thank you.
5 yes, motion carried.
Okay. Anything else? City Attorney?
Council, I was going to introduce you to our new legal intern. She was in the back watching throughout the meeting, but 5 minutes ago. She just had to probably go out because the meeting lasted so long. So if you see her around, give her a smile and a handshake. She'll be working with me in the near future on all of the city legal needs. So just want to, her name is Alyssa Britton. She comes to us from, she's a recent graduate of UCCS with a criminal justice degree, and just trying to get some experience and get a taste of what city government is like. So if you see her, say hello.
Okay. Chief Max and. Okay. Commander Lewis, anything?
No, sir. Nothing this evening.
All right. Thanks for spending time with us tonight. Anything from IT? John? Curtis? Thanks for taking the group out today and giving a tour. Mr. Lewis, anything?
Just that tomorrow we start our departmental meetings for our 2020 budget, so we can hear what their requests are. And I'm excited about putting that all together and making sure that everything balances.
All right, thanks. Ms. Huffman, anything?
I just wanted to report real quickly on the successful event of the Daddy-Daughter Dance that was held this last Sunday. We had quite a few fathers and daughters come out and make lifetime memories at that event. And I wanted to formally thank my recreation coordinator, Gordy McCormick, for putting that together so quickly. He did that in just about a month.
Oh, wow.
And it was absolutely beautiful. Everybody got dinner. There was a DJ. There was a character drawing. There were pictures being taken, and all of the little girls and bigger girls that were there actually got flowers.
Oh,
So
awesome.
It was a really great event, and we look forward to the next one, which we're hoping is going to be the mother-son event. But since we are live streaming, we'd love to find some sponsors to help us with the next event. That would be great.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mayor Pro Tem, anything? Mr. Geek?
Nothing.
Mr. Applegate?
Nothing.
Ms. Thompson?
Sorry, I do have something.
Just one thing, grab a bookmark on your way out the door. PPACG is working really hard to stay in ozone attainment. We're right on the edge of being out of ozone attainment. We don't want to go back to all those things like having to get your car, what do you call it? Smog inspected. We don't have to go back to the gas tanks, but you can't get the thing in because you have to hold the little thing in. So kind of grab it, get some tips, and we want to stay in ozone. The irony is when you're out of containment, you get money to get back into containment. So then when money runs out and you get out of containment, then you get more money back again. So it's kind of like one of these weird catch-22 things, but if you can carpool, carpool.
Okay, I have nothing. We have no executive sessions. We do have a GID real quick. So we will adjourn our city council meeting. Our next meeting will be August 27th. And I'll give her a second to re-adjourn us.